Chapter 3. Professor Kimani joined the University of Nairobi directly as a senior lecturer. Even before taking off, he was already flying. There was a reason. Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda had just dismantled the University of East Africa. Kenya's part of the university, now renamed University of Nairobi, found itself with a vacancy it had to fill immediately in its Institute of Development Studies. Professor Kimani, who had just completed his studies at the University of Oxford, wrote from there to say he wanted to fill it. To ensure he came and filled it for sure, the University of Nairobi raised his entry point from that of lecturer to that of senior lecturer. He came. Only a month after his arrival, he launched a noisy debate in which he demanded that the University of Nairobi henceforth strive for relevance to the society, rather than simply excellence of its work. It was not clear exactly what he meant by relevance to the society. However, a short 6 months later, he prevailed. The university's official motto became relevance to the society. After winning this war, he started another war which was even noisier. Now he wanted the university to be an agent of change, not a mere spectator of it. This was when people still thought this view was too radical and ridiculed it as simple-minded. So, not surprisingly, some of his colleagues, puzzled by his refusal to see that it was too radical, looked at him and then shook their heads in disbelief. Others, baffled by his inability to see that it was simple-minded, did or said little, convinced that he would fall on his face before long and self-destruct on his own without their help. He did not care. After all, his antics in the wars that he had started and won had also won him to the heart of a campus beauty queen. Her name was Asia Omondi. He married her on a rainy but approving Saturday to claps of thunder and flashes of lightning. How marriage then accelerated academic success. A professorship soon followed. After that achievement, he felt fulfilled. His persona was now complete. Had anyone told him this happiness would one day end, as it did, he would have laughed himself upside down. A global economic recession came. Africa was not spared. Jobs and incomes vanished. To get out of the crisis, Africa had to make changes. Changes. They were everywhere. Donors were the forces behind them, Tuni. Professor Kimani told his daughter. Tuni owed that name to Tunisia, believed to be her country of conception. Her father had gone there for a conference, her mother for the ride. What the donors did, Tuni, was to gang up on Africa. Professor Kimani said before he took a lick of his ice cream. He and his daughter were cooling off at some low-end restaurant in the center of Nairobi. Look here, you Africa, the donors said with one voice. You will get no more aid from us unless you change this, that, and the other. Understand? What did Africa do? Tony asked. She was deep into her second ice cream. Of course, Africa did as told, he said. Mind you, the donors did well to hang tough. Were it not for them, we'd still be reciting foolish cliches about home growing our own development strategies instead of importing foreign models. He took another lick of his ice cream and grimaced. Why, he wondered, had no whiz kid invented warm ice cream yet? You're not enjoying your ice cream, Dad, are you? Tony asked. It's too cold, he told her. Then he put it inside and continued. Sadly, late changes only catalyze excess. When at last they come, people go on a rampage to make up for the time they feel they have lost. Nowhere was this rampage more evident than in parliaments, the very institutions that epitomized change. Nowhere was excess more revolting than in a coup that a parliament staged. The parliament staged a coup? Yes, and they staged it successfully. Look, the year I started teaching, members of parliament still earned less, I repeat, less than professors did. Now each MP rakes in up to 100 times, repeat, 100 times the income a professor makes. It gets worse. Earnings by professors still consist of salaries which are taxable, whereas earnings by MPs are no longer deemed salaries and have long ceased to be taxable. Both the rise in income by MPs and the exemption of that income from taxation came with the coup. I thought the days of coups were over. Ha ha ha. Think again, Tony. Not only do we still have coups by soldiers, now we also have coups by lawmakers. These latter coups are even more lethal because they are legal. Is it legal for lawmakers to raise their wages as they please? Yes, it is. Why is that? Because legal only means permitted by those who make the laws, and MPs make the laws that raise their income. Legal does not mean moral or even normal. It does not? No. To steal their power against reversal, all that MPs need to do now is to amend the existing constitution by inserting in it one tiny clause. Since God himself cannot lower the wages MPs give to themselves, then neither can mere MPs. Is that possible? Absolutely. After that has happened, the code that brought these new wages about becomes irreversible. So you see, parliaments can be even worse than armies. Tony blinked uncomprehendingly. Worse than armies? She asked. She had her mother's eyes, wings of an imported butterfly, pure black in the middle, pure white at the margins, ringed with inch-long eyelashes. Whenever she blinked, her eyes fluttered as if they were about to fly her away. Dad, what do you mean? The eyelashes were fluttering. You see, Tony, soldiers could stage coups, true. However, since they were not lawmakers, they couldn't legalize their action. In other words, they only broke the law, nothing more. Now MPs do more. They break the law and legislate that breach as the new law. That's what I mean. But when elections come, the electorate votes. But when elections come, the electorate votes them out, right? Yes, just as when rains come, water lashes off the spots of a leopard. Dad, I'm serious. The wings of the butterfly were fluttering madly. Then listen to me. New parliaments are just like the old. No, they're more like the old. They raised their salaries more than did the old. The long and the short of it, Tony, is that nothing has really changed. Change in Africa has only replaced tyranny by presidents with tyranny by MPs. He paused to think. Then he resumed. Come to think of it, the French have always had it right. They say the more things change, the more they stay the same. Actually, we've had it right all along as well. We say, msitu mpya, nyani wale wale. New forest, same old monkeys? Asked Tony. Correct. Dad, have you considered going into politics? Me going into politics? No. Politics isn't for me. Teaching is. Guarding had come of age in Kenya. No longer was it the marginal activity it once had been. It had matured into a fully fledged industry. Now it did not stop at just home protection. It covered other areas as well. In the transport area, it meant vehicles full of touch-me-not anti-theft gadgetry. In the tourism sector, it meant tour operators warning foreigners against showing valuables in public. In the workplace, it meant seminars on personal safety, and so on. Professor Kimani viewed this growth in guarding with disapproval, to which he had added contempt. He considered it a symptom of failure by the state to ensure the safety of its citizens. His daughter held a more practical view. Mom and Dad, do you want to hear something clever that I did today? She asked her parents breezily. at supper one evening. I attended a seminar on personal safety. That's what I did. Professor Kimani snorted. You call that clever? He helped himself to more food. Tuni, safety isn't a clever thing we do by attending seminars. It's a necessity the state should provide to us. And if it can't, he did not answer. She waited. Still, no reply came. Finally, Asia I have all the tools I need, you see. She took out cotton wool and balled it with her fingers. First, we'll use cotton wool to scrub it clean with this. She showed him a tiny bottle containing a clear purplish liquid. It's my nail polish remover. She uncapped the bottle, tipped it, and wet a part of her cotton ball with the liquid. Nail polish is mostly alcohol. Fully absorbed in her work now, she had forgotten all about the missing button on her dress. Alcohol dissolves dirt off other stuff. In this case, it will dissolve it off your scrape. Don't let it dissolve my face off as well, okay? I'll try to remember that. Will it sting? Yes, but only a little. Okay, now let's go. She went to work. Ouch, you said it wouldn't sting. I said it would sting a little. She wiped the scrape dry with a fresh cotton ball, then put a small band-aid on it. Anyway, you are all patched up now, good as new. She gathered her tools and put them back in her handbag. So, if you'll excuse me now, I'd like to go fix my dress. She took her handbag into the bathroom, then closed the door. I won't be long, she said. That might well have been his cue. He immediately killed all the lights in the suite except the one in the bedroom, stripped down to briefs, drew a spare blanket and a spare bed cover over a couch, then slid between the blanket and bed cover. The door to the bathroom opened. Fiona emerged and started walking but stopped. Her eyes had not adjusted to the darkness in the living room. Where are you? She asked. Over here, he said. I have taken a couch in the living room. Go take the bed in the bedroom. You're acting as if you might have a wife, she said. Do you? No. She divorced me last year. Did she? Yes. Let's see now. You studied in America at a marriageable age. So let me guess. Go ahead. She's American. Who? Pamela? That's her name, Pamela. Yes, it is. And yes, she's American. Enough about me now. Let's turn on you. Shouldn't your name be still Fiona Mackenzie? Who told you it might have changed? She started walking to the bedroom. Her eyes had adjusted to the only light. Why was the Liberian Mola calling you Joy instead? It's local slang for streetwalker. He was calling you a streetwalker? Yes. Do you want me to draw a picture of you? Where are you from anyway? Mass? No. Nigeria. Married? Me? The phone rang. He rose and answered the landline by the couch. When he ended the call, his mood had darkened. What's the matter? She asked him. You seem upset all of a sudden. Who was on the phone? One Chineke Chiamaka, he said. The man was claiming that I cheated him for being drunk, when all he had had was a Pepsi. He wriggled in his improvised bed to protest his innocence against that claim. It beats me how he got my suit phone number in the first place, he added. Anyway, I did not chide him. Why do people like to tell lies? I'm not sure. Perhaps it's fun, she said. Lying is fun? I said I'm not sure. Now you did a good turn for me downstairs. They say one good turn deserves another. So in return, can I tell you something I'm not sure yet I should tell you? Sure, go ahead. They have this youth at the VOA. His name is Nick Sentinel. What does he do? He snoops on wireless transmissions with a machine he calls, wait for it, the silent listener. While I was there this morning, when you were where? At the VOA? Yesterday you said you work for the Gambian News. Were you lying? After all, You've just said lying might be fun. Will you let me finish? No. Look, I really do work for the Gambian news. Skip the lies. You're a CIA agent, aren't you? I won't answer that. Because you are, or because you can't. Neither. Isn't that exactly what you would say if you were? Alright, I will answer it. Try. Believe me, I'm a reporter for the Gambian news. Normally, that is. But since right after our interview yesterday, I am on loan to the VOA. If you must know, the VOA pays much better than the Gambian news. Will the VOA take me for keeps? No. When the loan ends, it will be a thank you very much, Miss Mackenzie. But please go back to the Gambian news tomorrow and start eating boiled dirt for breakfast, lunch and supper again. Are you happy now, Dr. Afolabi? He did not answer. Anyhow, to go back to what I was saying, you won't believe the amount of information this Nick Sentinel has gathered with his machine in just a day or two. He has caught, on a compact disc he played back to me this morning, a man talking to 4 other men. Now, here is what makes this catch interesting. The man knows the other men's names, but for some strange reason, they don't know his, and he doesn't want them to know it. Dr. Afolabi started paying her greater attention. He feared the youth she was describing might have uncovered him. To hide his alarm, he yawned. "You're not interested in my story, are you?" she asked him. "Of course I am," he said. "I just think I will be more attentive tomorrow. Good night, Miss Mackenzie." "Good night, Dr. Afolabi." Chapter 5. Before Dr. Afolabi was invited to Banjul to serve as advisor to a summit of heads of state, he had previously been invited by the Foundation for Democratic Rule in Washington to give a keynote address at an annual conference. For his wife Pamela, the invitation by the foundation had been a godsend. It had brought her an opportunity to redeem herself. In over 6 years, she had not been to see her father, a widower who lived alone in Boston. Now she would get to see him at last. So, cancelling all of her other engagements, she rode on the back of the foundation's offer to pay for her husband's travel and paid for her own so she and he would visit her old man together. The old man was not in when they arrived. Pamela knew where he hid the key whenever he stepped out, so she got it and let herself in. Abiola followed her with the luggage but did not stay. Stiff of body after the long flight from Nigeria, he went out to loosen up instead, only to stumble upon a scene he would swear to himself never to disclose to his wife. Early summer had roofed Boston with a cloudless infinity of horizon-to-horizon blue. Bostonians, reveling in that good weather, were out in thousands. Dr. Afolabi took them on. He plunged into their midst as if he was one of them, inhaling greedy breaths of the day's clean air as he walked. He absorbed everything he saw. America, he noticed, had more old people now than in his Harvard years as a student. Its citizens were living longer. In days gone, the old would have been staying with the young, as they still did in his Africa, in the care of kith and kin until they died. Now they lived alone in their own homes, empty of relatives or joined contemporaries in old people's homes. A department store emerged. Dr. Afolabi headed for it. As soon as he stepped in, supply created demand. A shaving razor, he did not need to convince himself with just the power of its presence there that he needed it. He took it, joined a queue to pay, and there ran into a snag. The woman ahead of him, not at all familiar, was not a problem in any way. But the scruffy old man ahead of her, vaguely familiar, definitely was. He had killed the queue. I got baby here from Josh for Christmas. He was telling the girl at the cash register, pointing not at any baby but at watch-like gadget strapped to his wrist. Lives in Phoenix, Arizona. Josh does. Now watch. When I press baby here, the band you see around my wrist inflates and deflates to take blood pressure. Baby monitors blood pressure. You see. Hey, that's cool, the girl said. She had already stopped working. Wow, her excitement, though fake, appeared real. This girl was that good. So, your device measures blood pressure, you're telling me? She asked the old man. Ho ho ho. Baby does a lot more than that. She also displays the result on her screen here. The old man pointed at the face flat of his gadget. But silly old me, as I was having breakfast this morning, I accidentally dropped her in a pot of coffee. You'd have thought that was the end of baby. But no, look. He pressed baby somewhere. There was hissing, swelling and tightening around his wrist. She still works, you see. Can you believe that? Hit me on the head right now if I can. Baby has memory too. She remembers up to 31 previous measurements. The girl decided she had humored the old man long enough now. You aren't buying anything from us today, are you? She asked, peering at his empty shopping cart. I'll buy stuff tomorrow. He went back to his Christmas gift from Josh. So, every month, baby remembers where I've been and compares that with where I am. You didn't come to shop then. You just came to show me your blood pressure monitor. Well, I'm impressed. She sat up again. Listen, go have a nice day for me out there in that gorgeous weather now, okay? Sure. He sounded disappointed. I was already on my way out anyway. Then he shuffled off. The girl turned to her next customer, the woman in front of Dr. Afolabi. You didn't mind that, did you, ma'am? The woman shook her head. No, I did not. Bless your heart, ma'am, the girl said to the woman. Then she started totaling the woman's groceries to a rapid succession of blips from her checkout scanner. You saw that poor fellow? She tipped her head in the old man's direction. Blip. We get people like him in here all the time. Blip. She was quick. They want to touch and be touched. Blip. See and be seen. Blip. Listen and be listened to. Blip. Not to watch television at home alone all day. Blip. It doesn't hurt to oblige every now and then, does it? No, miss. It doesn't. Blip. That's what I think too, ma'am. Blip. The girl had finished. Total comes to $396.54, ma'am. Will it be debit or credit, ma'am? It will be credit. The woman gave the girl a credit card. The girl swiped it through a machine, then gave it back with an invoice to be signed. Isn't it lovely outside, ma'am? She was looking out of a window. It sure is, miss. The woman returned the invoice to her, signed. I wish I were out there. Oh well, have a nice day, ma'am. You too, miss, said the woman and then left. Dr. Afolabi's turn had come. Good morning, sir, said the girl to him. Will that be all, sir? She was looking at his razor. Yes, he said. You see, I only use one at a time. It was a foolish joke and it fell flat. He apologized. Sorry. No problem. Blip. That will be $5.23, sir. He marshaled that whole sum in coins, paid her, and then left. She had handled the old man with great tact, he thought. But what would the But what would the old fellow do next? Would he go to show baby to another chatty girl at a checkout counter? Or brag about baby to a friend over booze in a bar? Or would he simply go back home and watch TV? It was hard to say which it would be. Dr. Folabi then saw a toddler wobble away from the mother to go feed street pigeons. The child was biracial, half black, half white. The mother was classic black, pure and blended. The toddler got Dr. Folabi thinking. His children with Pamela would have had the toddler's fractions too, half black, half white. Perhaps they would also have had its sweetened complexion, amber, the color of honey. This all seemed far-fetched now. He wanted to have 2 children of his own. Pamela wanted 2 as well, but adopted. She thought Africa already had too many children, so why not take theirs from the pool that was already there? Why add yet more? Dr. Folabi did not move. She did not either. The result? An impasse. They did not have children of their own or adopted. An hour later, he rejoined his wife at her father's house. By then, the old man was back. He had just accepted as a gift from her the African face mask that was still snarling at him from his lap. Now he was showing her a blood pressure monitor that a friend of his had sent him as a Christmas present from Arizona. Never, here or away, so Dr. Folabi, would he ever disclose to his wife the scene he had walked into at the department store. The lonely old man he had seen there was her father. The flight out of Washington back to Nigeria had on board a cranky passenger in first class was demanding to sit next to a friend of his in economy class. Only by persuading another person in economy class to trade seats with him did the crew finally silence him. As Pamela was exchanging seats with him, she assumed the crew would ask her husband to come along and sit with her. When that change in seating did not happen, she asked why not. Fake smiles were the only answer she got. She and her husband ended up traveling in different cabins. "Tad," said the cranky passenger as he was settling down in economy class in a seat next to Dr. Folabi's. "Tad Longway," he added. His voice, deep, lingered on like the boom of a big drum. He held out a card. Dr. Folabi took it. It said the man was Director of Special Projects at the Agency for Governance and Development in Africa. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Longway." Dr. Folabi said, "My name is Abiola Afolabi. I teach at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria." "You gave an excellent keynote address the other day, Dr. Folabi," said the cranky passenger. Sparks of earnestness were crossing his eyes, both crystal green like toy marbles, confirming the compliment was sincere. "Your keynote address at the Foundation for Democratic Rule, it was brilliant." "I'm glad you liked it, Mr. Longway," Dr. Folabi said. His voice had become warm. "You were there, then, Mr. Longway?" "Yes, but back in the last row. As a mere spectator, I did not want to be obtrusive." "Yes, but back in the last row. As a mere spectator, I did not want to be obtrusive." "Anyway, you are superb, Dr. Folabi. If you don't mind my adding this, I was more impressed by the points that the audience raised afterwards during the question and answer period." Dr. Folabi felt the praise he had Dr. Folabi felt the praise he had just heard turn into reproach. So, what were those points, Mr. Longway? He asked. His voice was less warm. Remember the guy from Grassroots International, short fellow, round of body and outspoken of manner? What was his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. You must mean the fire eater who kept accusing me of looking for answers where I shouldn't have even looked. Dr. Folabi said, Exactly, that's our man. Yes, I thought he was right on point, Dr. Folabi. He too was unhappy with the present state. Wait, the present state of what? Africa. I don't understand. No problem. I'll spell it out for you. You see, Dr. Folabi, Africa in its present state has two new arrivals, corruption and impunity. The first is a crime, the second protects from punishment. The first is a crime, the second protects from punishment, the second is another crime, the first rewards with kickbacks. That is Africa in its present state. Now, can it change? Tell me, can it? Well, let's ask the law of will. What? Unless there is will to change, there will be no change. That is the law of will, Dr. Folabi. I was wondering whether you might be interested in an adventure that is being sponsored by AGDA. Oh, I am sorry. Make that the Agency for Governance and Development in Africa. Its underlying idea is to mobilize our discontent with Africa in its present state into will to change it. This little meeting between us is not an accident, then, is it, Mr. Longway? What's an accident, Dr. Folabi? All events are but consequences of events that precede them. Now, what is this I hear about you serving as advisor at the next summit of Africa's heads of state in Banjul, the Gambia? You are well informed, Mr. Longway, Dr. Folabi said. He had begun to see the green-eyed man in a different light. Yes, heads of state have invited me there to give them my views on Way Omega, he added. You know of Way Omega, no? Yes, I do. So what are they, your views? They are that the summit should go with Way Omega. They are that the summit should go with Way Omega. It will change our style of doing business. Just think, no more military coups or rigged elections, no more civil wars or ethnic clashes. If adopted, what a breath of fresh air Way Omega would be. Dr. Folabi, don't confuse what you want to happen with what will. You know Way Omega won't fly, don't you? I see. Do you have an alternative that will fly? Yes, I do. Does it have a name? Yes, Path Alpha. It differs from Way Omega like day from night. You see, whereas Way Omega is top-driven and lacks the will for its implementation, Path Alpha is bottom-led. Path Alpha is oh my God. Path Alpha is bottom-led and has that will. Now, come to the point. We would like you to guide our 4 Path Alpha travelers whom AGDA is sending as observers to the very summit we'll be going to serve as advisor. Mr. Longway, I will be going to the summit to advise 50 heads of state there to participate in it, not to mentor 4 travelers from AGDA, there only to observe it. But where is the problem, Dr. Folabi? You could look both at what Way Omega is recommending for adoption and at what Path Alpha is proposing as an alternative. If you are open-minded, that is. Of course I am open-minded. Then you'll accept our request. But let me be clear here. We are not asking you to defect from Way Omega to Path Alpha. You will be of no value to us if you did. Is that right? Yes. We need an entry point at the summit. And we'd lose it if you left to Omega. I see. So here is what I want you to do, Dr. Afolabi. Go chew your card for a day or two over this document. The stranger showed Dr. Afolabi a document titled Path Alpha. It had all the information you'll need to decide. It has all the information you'll need to decide. If you decide to accept our request, call me and we'll take it from there. You know where to reach me. I gave you my card. Oh, one more thing. We will cover all attendant costs. All right? I'll let you rest. Have a pleasant flight, Dr. Afolabi. The boy grabbed Pamela's left hand with both of his hands. He had never done that before. There had to be something wrong. Madam, I think you best not go in room that be yours, the boy said. No, go inside, madam, please, I beg. Pamela resorted to broken English herself. But Isa, inside the bedroom, inside the bedroom of my, she said. Yes, but please no go in, madam. There be person you no going like. Person I no going like? She was intrigued. Who? A burglar? The youth let go of her arm so he could scratch his head. Did he have lice? No. He was only buying time. No, madam, he said finally. Not burglar. Then who is it? Aha. No, tell me now. I know. You forgot I go be coming home today and brought friend be yours to room be mine. So inside room be mine now. Be house a friend be yours. You sure room be mine this now. You are a house boy, no? Isa shook his head vigorously to deny the charge he had just heard mentioned. Is so wrong what madam here saying, now that me cannot even think it. Madam, in room, not be friend of mine. There be somebody else you know going like, but not friend of mine, houser or no houser. Let's now drop off all this gibberish for a while, okay? She left broken English and returned to normal English. Didn't I tell you never to let anyone into the house, least of all into my bedroom, while Master and I were in America? Isa gave no answer. Did I not? Again, he gave no answer. Isa, I'm talking to you. Once more, the boy gave no response. Dr. Afolabi stepped in. Isa, when Madame asks you a question, she expects you to answer it. You have chosen not to. So you have me to deal with. Whom did you let into our bedroom, Isa? Answer me, or I'll break this thing. He seized the boy roughly by an arm. Which is it going to be? An answer or a broken arm? His grip on the arm tightened. Isa hollered. Oh, master, you hurting me. His eyes were shining with tears. I not let stranger to bedroom. Abiola loosened his grip. Then who did? A deep voice roared from somewhere. I did. Pamela and Abiola spun together to look at its source. It was a man who was stepping out of a bathroom. In a display of skill and calm, he was zipping his fly with one hand and buttoning his shirt with the other. But this display did not cancel out the unease it could not erase. The scar on his face. That scar was scary. And who are you? Pamela demanded. She was already angry with him. He turned his back on her deliberately, his disdain, and, to show the contempt she would not fail to notice, spoke to her husband instead, pointedly in Yoruba. Outraged, she walked up to him and reasserted herself. It's I who asked you a question, mister, not my husband. "You ask who I am?" he asked. "I am me." The man then turned around to face her, showing her his scar. Horrified, she recoiled from him. "Please go away, whoever you are," she told him. The man pressed his advantage. "Abiola, better tell scared white woman you call wife what brave fighter I be," he said ugly, again in English, for her benefit. Re-enraged, she resummoned her courage. "Mister, you are in my house. You will show me respect and answer me directly when I ask you a question. So, once more, who are you?" Before the man could answer, Dr. Folabi spoke to him in Yoruba. Pamela was shocked. Abiola, so you know him?" Her question was both a query and an accusation. "Honey, let me explain. Is that a yes or a no?" Pamela's shock was slowly turning into anger at her husband. "It's a yes. You see, Pamela, Femi is a cousin. He and I grew up together in Kaduna, so he is a friend too." Dr. Folabi spoke to the man again in English. "What a surprise your visit is, Femi. Now, back to the business at hand. Who is in our bedroom?" First, the man refused to answer the question. A moment later, he answered it, but in Yoruba. He ended with a question of his own, still in Yoruba. To carry Pamela along, Dr. Folabi replied in English. "I see. Now let's skip the skin and go directly to the beef. Who have you installed in our bedroom, Femi?" The man gestured at Pamela, meaning she had to leave the room before he answered. "No," said Dr. Folabi firmly, "she stays." Strange noises came out from the man from Kaduna. They were expressions of displeasure. Loud words in Yoruba followed. They spoke of scandal. Dr. Folabi just had to respond to them. "Femi, are you serious?" he asked. The man nodded. He was. "Who told you I want a second wife?" Dr. Folabi asked. "Pamela is the only wife I want." To show it, he went and wrapped her in his arms. She wriggled away. "Leave me alone," she told him. The man spoke again in Yoruba. Again, Dr. Folabi felt he had to respond. "And how do you know that Pamela can't have children of her own?" He asked him. A sharp answer shot out from the man from Kaduna like an arrow in hurried Yoruba. This time, Dr. Folabi shouted his response. "Femi, shut up. You can't talk to me like that. You are in my house." Two unsolicited observations, now in wailing leisurely Yoruba, followed. Oh my God. Two unsolicited observations, now in wailing leisurely Yoruba, followed. Dr. Folabi's response was calmer. "Pamela and I have no children, yes. But that's because we don't yet want them, not because she can't ever have them," he said. "And who told you she hates children?" Pamela had had enough. She stormed away at a run and disappeared, only to reappear with a broomstick in her hands, chasing a young girl she had found in her bed. The man from Kaduna saw the young girl. "Nimbo, ho!" he hollered. Nimbo was the girl's name. On hearing her name called, she changed course and started running towards the man who had called it. "Femi, ho!" she hollered back. Pamela followed the girl in hot pursuit until the man from Kaduna glowered at her. At that point, she stopped in her tracks and retreated. Then she turned to Dr. Folabi. "Tell them to leave this house right now. Start with your cousin." The Yoruba man drew at her a defiant look. I'm not leaving, he told her. Yes, you are, Dr. Folabi said. Pamela is right, Femi. You are wrong to bring this girl here without clearing her first with me. After that answer, he expected the cousin to hit the roof. Instead, the wife hit it. Listen to yourself, Abiola, she said. Do you mean none of this would have been wrong if he had cleared her with you first? I am your wife, for goodness sake. Look, it's very easy. Start with, cousin, you must leave this house right away. Now go on from there. Pamela, you don't understand, Abiola said. I don't understand? She asked. Now that is interesting. What part don't I understand? She stood with arms akimbo. Go ahead, tell me. Femi says folks back home came up with this whole idea, not him. Dr. Folabi said. So if you want people to shoot, go shoot them. Not him. He is only their messenger. He remembered the girl. And not the girl either. She is only what they wanted their messenger to deliver. They must leave now, Pamela insisted, stamping her foot on the floor. Is that clear? But honey, it's almost midnight, Dr. Folabi told her. So what if it's almost midnight? She said. Now wait a minute, she had hit on an idea. You knew about the girl all along, didn't you? Honey, that's not funny. No? Then listen to this. Husband wants children of his own, but wife wants to adopt them instead. To break this standoff, send him a girl from his home village. She will bear him the children he wants. Pamela! That was your idea, wasn't it? How could your folks have come up with a scheme that fits our case so closely if you hadn't put them up to it? You had a hand in it, didn't you? Get hold of yourself, Pamela. You are imagining things. That's right, Abiola, I am. Yes, you are. So, the girl I see in our home is just a figment of my imagination, right? And the man standing there beside you is another figment of my imagination, right? Pamela, what do you want me to do? Tell them they can't stay. Pamela, Femi is my relative, my blood. I see, he matters and I don't. Is that what you are saying? That's not what I am saying, and you know it. That's not what I am saying, and you know it is not. He went and put a reassuring hand on one of her shoulders. She shrugged it off in an unambiguous rebuff. What are you saying then? She asked him. They could leave tomorrow, he suggested. In that case, I will leave now. Refusing to wait until daybreak, she trudged out and disappeared into the night, wheeling behind her suitcase that she had not even had time to unpack. A week later, she phoned Dr. Afolabi from her father's home in Boston. She had filed for divorce, she told him. That little separation on their flight out of Washington to Nigeria had been a precursor to this much bigger separation. Chapter 6. Sunrise drew the heavens wide open over Banjul on the day the summit began. The sky above was a cloudless vastness, arcing triumphantly in all directions. What really set the tone were two other vast elements, the sun, very hot, and the Atlantic Ocean, not far away. These two determined the tempo of everything on that day. First, they produced heat and humidity so high as to cast a spell on all events to come. Then they added sweat, which put a damper on each event when it came. The most important event on the day, of course, was the opening of the summit. Its principal participants were heads of state, 50 of them. So, security was at its tightest. Yet, as Comrade Melusi waited in line to be cleared, he was a picture of calmness. He was not worried at all. To kill time, he was reflecting idly on the logic behind security clearance. What was the big idea here? To detect or to data? The two could not be different. Detection spots actual danger at specific points. Detection spots actual danger at specific points and punishes it there. Deterrence, on the other hand, sees potential crime everywhere and punishes it everywhere. So, again, what was the idea behind security clearance? Comrade Melusi decided it was to cover both detection and deterrence. His turn came. "Not good, sir," said a young security officer after x-raying his briefcase. "You have a teeny-weeny boy here who I'd like to see. You know, with this," he meant with his eyes. "Please, show me this little fellow here." He tapped on a dark area on the screen of his x-ray machine. Caught by surprise, Comrade Melusi could not give the youth the calm response he might have given. Then he remembered, security clearance aims to detect and to deter. By harassing everyone, bad and good, it does not only detect actual anger. By harassing everyone, bad and good, it does not only detect actual anger, it also deters potential crime. "What little fellow do you mean, officer?" asked Comrade Melusi, now calmly. "Sir, there seems to be a needle in your briefcase," said the youth. "Oh, you mean that little fellow?" Relieved, Comrade Melusi added cheer to his voice to announce willingness to cooperate. "I'll get him out for you." He took out of his briefcase a cellophane pouch containing a needle and some medicine. "It's for my diabetes," he told the youth, pointing at the needle. Comrade Melusi had discovered he had diabetes during a medical checkup that Agda had asked him to take while he was joining Path Alpha. Since then, his attitude towards diabetes had become proprietary. He owned the affliction, hence my diabetes. The attention with which he read pamphlets about it was similar to the interest with which first-time car owners read user manuals. This attitude had paid off because he was now an authority on diabetes. "Believe me, officer," he told the youth. "Without this medicine, I can't live a day." "Is that right?" the youth yawned, making even more obvious his indifference to what he had just heard. "I wouldn't know, sir," he added, meaning he could not be any less interested, his interest being zero already. Then suddenly he snapped to alert. He had remembered something. "Hey, you could hurt other people with that." "With this needle?" "Yes, with that needle." "And what would I use for my next shot?" "Just as I thought." "What next shot?" "Officer, let me ask you something. How old do you think I am? 70? "Yes, plus or minus 5. "That's correct. Now, out of every 100 people in that age range, 30 of us are diabetic. We are unable to regulate the sugar level in our blood, and that kills most of us. This medicine is what keeps those of us who survive alive." He brandished his cellophane pouch again. "We shot it into our veins with needles like that one." "That may be so, sir, but you cannot take that stuff in. Leave it here with me." I'll do no such thing if I have to wait here until the cows come home. What cows? Sir, you are holding up the line. This needle is my life, officer. Sir, there are at least 100 people lined up behind you, and they are all diabetic like me, I suppose. But where is the problem, sir? Just leave your stuff here. When it's time for your next shot, come get it and go out somewhere and do your thing. What's wrong with that? Comrade Melusi decided to get firm. Young man, look here, he said. It seems I have not made myself clear. The youth cut him off. No, sir, it seems it is I who has not made myself clear. Your needle is not coming in now, later, or ever. Is that clear now? Put it here. He held out a white plastic tray. Comrade Melusi pushed it away. What's with you young officers? His words were louder, their tone of calm gone. Are you hard of hearing, perhaps? Well, if you are, then listen harder. The youth nearly fell off his seat. Now, do exactly as I tell you, and we both get on with our lives. Continue refusing to cooperate, and I ask them to come. He tipped his head in the direction of armed guards. And when they come, they will take care of you, as only they know how. Okay? Okay. It's all... Okay, it's your call. Still, you are forcing me to climb up a steep mountain of risk here. It ends in blindness, kidney failure, foot ulcers, leg amputations, and many other bad things like that. What is it about this litany of bad things that gave the youth reason to change his mind? Anyway, he did. All right, sir. The more I look at you, the more I see somebody I can trust. So, sir, I'll let you in with your medicine after all. Please proceed. The two men were having lunch at Chaminuka restaurant in downtown Harare. Padalfa still lay in the future. Nevertheless, as became clearer and clearer during the conversation they were having, Banjul would soon lie firmly on their trajectory. After defeating Smith, Comrade Melusi told his visitor, Zimbabwe had one urgent order of business still left, that of a peaceful passage to an elected government. To oversee this process, we hurriedly put together a transition government. Comrade Melusi looked around the restaurant. It was empty. He consulted a wall clock. It told him 1:30 p.m. There should have been many diners. Instead, he and his visitor were the only customers. People in Zimbabwe did not eat out anymore, unless, as now, some foreign was footing the bill. Their economy had crashed. Comrade Melusi continued, the commander of our group was the head of that government, he said. The visitor raised his eyebrows, surprised by what he had just heard. The commander of your group was? He asked. Lunch was his idea. There was a subject he wanted to discuss. He had told Comrade Melusi when they met. So how about lunch? Yes, on him. By the way, he had said his name was Tad Longwe, Director of Special Projects at AGDA, the Agency for Governance and Development in Africa. You see, he continued, I had always assumed that the other guy, the commander of the other group, was head of the transition government. Comrade Melusi shook his head. No. The leader of our group was. Well, live and learn, said the visitor. His voice was deep, as if he always spoke from bottomless holes in the ground. Correct, live and learn, Comrade Melusi agreed. Hungry? He looked blacker than usual. Hunger does have a dark side. Our leader and I fought Smith side by side for years. This was why he used to call me comrade. Then independence came, said the visitor, urging his host on. And the new national anthem was sung, Comrade Melusi added, in English. Blessed be the land of Zimbabwe. In Shona, the language of Zimbabwe's largest ethnic group. Simuzai Mureza we Zimbabwe. In Ndebele, my mother tongue, Kalibusiswe Ilizwe le Zimbabwe. He croaked out 2 lines in Ndebele between bites, then gave up. Our national motto was unity, freedom, and work. But what unity, what freedom, and what work? Above all, what for? When we had a new ruler now? Let me guess, you did not hit it off with the new ruler, did you? Asked the visitor. He was toying with his food, having tired of stabbing his pepper stick with a knife in search of loss, then flipping it over on its other side to search for more. Now, with a fork for pen, he was drawing line figures in his mashed potatoes, smoothing the figures out and then drawing them again. The new ruler did not appoint you minister, correct? He asked. Correct, Comrade Melusi answered, then took a gulp of his coke. He loved it. Ah, the part of it that remained, he set aside for another gulp later. The man had other ideas, he said. Like what? Like strengthening supporters and weakening opponents. You have to agree that was shrewd, remarked the visitor. To retain power, once said a wise man, a regime must make its supporters stronger, its opponents weaker. Your wise man was right, Comrade Melusi agreed. His roast chicken was nearly gone. Anyway, he was Shona, our new ruler. When he discovered I was Ndebele, he deemed me an opponent, presumed I was guilty, and threw me out of his government. You are joking. Merely on ethnic grounds? Yes, but the leader of our group did stay on, although even he did not last long. A cache of firearms materialized at his arms, proof enough that he was plotting a coup. Therefore, out. The visitor pushed his lunch away. Too salty, he said. Let me ask you something, Mr. Melusi. Mr. Melusi, did you say? No. It is Comrade Melusi. All right, Comrade Melusi. Are you saying the leader of your group was sacked? Correct. Melusi had polished off his roast chicken. Now he was picking up the last of his French fries. The new ruler fired him. A black hand went across the table for the pepper stick and mashed potatoes that the white man had rejected. Hatred. It's not too strong a word to use here. Finally had brought the 2 men to a parting of ways. The visitor saw Comrade Melusi's scavenging hand steal his lunch. Taking that as a hint, he broadened his earlier generosity with a new offer. Would you perhaps also like to have dessert, Comrade Melusi? Yes, I'll try their chocolate cake, just to see if it is as creamy and yummy as their menu brags it is. The pepper stick and mashed potatoes previously rejected were quickly disappearing. I've found menus often overstate their claims. Yes, grossly. The visitor sounded dissatisfied. His pepper stick clearly had not measured up. I think I'll just settle for a cup of coffee now. We'll have only a cup of coffee, Mr. Longway. Yes, I hope they'll make it hot. The visitor looked around the restaurant. It had the mournful look of a funeral parlor. He snapped his fingers twice. Snap, snapped. Snap, snap. Then he backed out his whereabouts. Over here. His voice tore through the restaurant's wall-to-wall silence like thunder through an empty cathedral. We'd like to order, please. More thunder. Over here. Even more thunder. A Zimbabwean youth in maroon trousers and a white t-shirt came running. Good boy, the visitor said. Now listen good. Good. For friend of mine here, you go come bring me chocolate cake. The visitor had slipped into minimal English. For me, also here, go come bring coffee. Milk black, no milk. Hot. Hear and understand, young man. Snap, snap. Hop toe. The youth fled. Believing this was now an opportune time to get down to business, Comrade Melusi cleared his throat, then spoke. Mr. Longway, did you say there was a subject you wanted us to discuss? He asked. Yes, I did. But can't we do that a little later? Comrade Melusi, you are still telling me about the leader of your group. Yes, indeed I was, said Comrade Melusi, sounding a little disappointed. Well, no sooner did news of the dismissal of our leader hit southern Zimbabwe, where then no sooner did news of the dismissal of our leader hit southern Zimbabwe, where the Ndebele live, an anti-government unrest erupted in that area. Smarting from their man's humiliation, people there went on a rampage and attacked every government supporter foolish enough to come in their sight. Let me guess once more. Retribution against them followed. Yes, it did, swiftly. There swooped on the area the 5th Brigade, better known as the Gukurahundi. The what? The Gukurahundi. It is Shona for the year's first rainstorm that washes chaff off fields so soil tilling can start. It washed off the Ndebele insurgents like chaff, alright? Comrade Melusi's eyes were starting to glisten with the beginnings of tears. It started while I was still at work. I had business office in downtown Bulawayo, the capital of the Ndebele. I left my office at once and drove back home. His voice was faltering, but home was a 50-minute drive away. He sniffled. So, by the time I arrived, the slaughter had already run its course. I found the front door of our house wide open. That was not a good sign. I called out to my wife. Ziliza, Ziliza, Ziliza. She did not answer. This was a bad omen. I rushed to the living room. It was in a shambles. I rushed out to the backyard. There was nobody. With my heart pounding, I pressed my face to the window of the master bedroom and peered. There was no one inside. I got back inside and tried the kitchen, and there she was. Her eyes were buggles of a dead stare. The Gukurahundi had strangled her. Then as a taunt, they had splayed her on the kitchen floor. Now Comrade Melusi dissolved in his tears. The waiter returned and delivered correctly a generous wedge of chocolate cake plus a cup of black tea. Then he fled again. Comrade Melusi composed himself. Then he reached for his cake and started eating. First, he ate in silence. Later, he brightened up and spoke as he ate. How the new ruler changed after the Ndebele insurgency. He said, the man had once seen as allies not just his fellow Shona tribesmen, but also all Ndebele tribesmen who had fought loyally for Zimbabwe's independence. Now, only his fellow Shona tribesmen could be trusted. All Ndebele tribesmen were rivals. This change transformed even well-meaning Ndebele into foes to be eliminated. Whoa! Will! The visitor was fanning his face with a hand. My, it is hot. In fact, Chaminuka restaurant, air-conditioned, was chilly, the visitor clarified. The coffee, I mean. He took another sip, cautiously. Even then, he nearly spat it out. It's too hot. His eyes were brimming with tears, from green eyes concealed in a clash with fire. He left the coffee alone and returned to Comrade Melusi. Comrade Melusi, why did the man change? The menu was right, Mr. Longway, Comrade Melusi commented. Their cake indeed is creamy and yummy. Are you sure you don't want any? Positive, answered the visitor, but I'm glad you like it. Would you like to have another piece, perhaps? Comrade Melusi's mind then answered, that would be overdoing it, Mr. Longway, don't you think? Now, where were we? Ah, yes. You asked why the man changed. Well, my guess is he wanted to be a life president. So he was, the voice was faltering again. Another meltdown seemed imminent. This time, the visitor came to the rescue. Comrade Melusi, let's stop here now and take up the rest tomorrow. He left and said a question he wanted answered. What had happened to the man before him that had cut so deep as to remain the raw memory it still was? Next time, the visitor wanted to try traditional food. Comrade Melusi took him to Mupunda restaurant at the northern edge of Harare. A sign at the entrance swore the place was the mother of Zimbabwe's traditional cuisine and promised nothing but serious food. They went in and ordered. Comrade Melusi picked up from where he had left off. In the end, I just couldn't resist it, he said. I mean, the temptation to annoy the bomber, which is what everyone had taken to calling the new ruler, because he was bombing the country's economy back to the Stone Age. I decided to irritate him in a small yet definite way. Goodness, I was naive. Don't you mean brave? No, I mean naive. This is Africa, my friend. You do not go around irritating a head of state in Africa unless you are naive. So why did you do it? Mr. Longway, I've just told you why I did it. I was naive. Anyway, I formed an opposition group, the New Independence Party, NIP. The visitor liked that. You mean there was a nip in the air? He joked. But the joke went completely over Comrade Melusi's head. Till the visitor pressed on. Then what did you do? I ran for president. Save your breath. There is no prize for guessing what followed. I'll guess anyway. The bomber won. Yes, by 99% of the votes. I and the other candidates shared 1%. Now, we knew we'd lose. We were naive, not stupid, but we didn't know we'd lose that badly. Yes, we did lose, comprehensively, in fact, but we did not lose that badly. Were you angry after you lost? Yes, but not so much at my enemy as at my allies. Wait, were you angry at your allies? Wait, why were you angry at your allies? Because we could have defeated our man, but only if we had fought him together. What had soured matters up against him so much for you to think so? You mean, what had not soured matters against him? First, there was a drought, the worst in the century. It had hit Zimbabwe so badly that the bomber himself had declared it a national disaster. Second, there was the international community. It had come and clamped on Zimbabwe, a program it aptly called SAP. SAP, Structural Adjustment Program, explained Comrade Melusi. What did it want? It wanted to revive Zimbabwe's economy by restructuring it. Did it succeed? Certainly not, said Comrade Melusi emphatically. Then he sighed. Oh well. A waiter brought the visitor's order, a plate of aromatic rice and a bowl of chicken curry, both steaming hot. Then he hurried back to where he had come from. It is best eaten while still hot, Mr. Longway, Comrade Melusi said, gesturing at the visitor's rice and chicken. So, please dig in. The visitor unfurled a red cloth napkin onto his lap. Comrade Melusi, are you sure I can go ahead? Yes, please do. Thank you. The visitor stated and started eating. A bite or two later, Comrade Melusi asked, How is the food here then, Mr. Longway? It's absolutely superb, said the visitor. I'm glad you like it. Comrade Melusi said proudly, as if he had played a role in its preparation. His order came, sadza, a thick maize porridge resembling mashed potatoes, accompanied by a rich beef stew. Looking good, cheered the visitor, pointing at the beef stew. It is good, the visitor confirmed. Here, try some. Next time perhaps, declined the visitor politely. Now tell me, how did the man win the election when Zimbabwe had been doing badly and everything spelled his defeat? He rigged the results. Aha! But let's be fair. We in the opposition did not help ourselves either. Instead of fighting him together, we fought each other. You should have looked for a way to achieve unity. They refused. Who? The leaders of opposition parties? Yes. Do you know why they refused? No, why? Because deep in their hearts they each wanted to be the next president. That's why. I begged them to lay personal ambition aside and combine our efforts and then fight the bomber together. You guessed it. They bowed me. After that, I let go. And each party went it alone by fielding its own presidential candidate, right? The visitor asked. His coffee arrived. Actually, there was one other exception. Besides NIP, that is. Comrade Melusi was working on his sadza, licking his fingers and smacking his lips from time to time. RAF, the Reformed Union of Freedom. RAF, the Reformed Union of Freedom Fighters, also urged unity, but not for long, he chuckled. Its leader soon had to quit. Poor fellow. Young guns under him had discovered he did not have a university degree, a finding that encouraged them to presume he was useless. He did not have a proper education, was how they put it. Out he went. Then RAF fielded its own candidate too. So, you're right. In the end, each party went it alone. Then the elections came, said the visitor. Yes, they came. We lost. Big time. But you know what? Comrade Melusi smiled wryly. This was when we achieved unity finally. For the half hour, we needed to declare together that the elections were a sham. But by fielding separate candidates like that, surely you would have lost anyway, said the visitor. Not so. We shouted together with one voice during that half hour. What followed? Disaffection is what followed. Comrade Melusi had finished his sadza. He was washing his hands in a basin with Water the waiter was pouring down from a pitcher. I went back into business. Now he was washing his lips over the basin, which the waiter had raised to his chin. The visitor reached for his coffee and took a sip. "More like it," he said. "Nice and hot," he added. Then he turned to Comrade Melusi. "Your new business, how did it do?" "I can't say it did well. Inflation was eroding incomes faster than they could grow. But I survived. I didn't live and work in as clean a suburb as I did before. I just could not afford the rent there anymore. No, I had relocated to a slum in a poor part of Harare. But hey, I was alive." He laughed falsely. Sorrow was in his eyes. Then there came Murambasivina. "Then there came what?" asked the visitor. "Murambasivina. It is Shona, meaning expelling the trash. Please go on." "Bulldozers went from slum to slum, evicting residents by tearing their homes to the ground. Murambasivina expelled us? The trash, alright? We got no advance warning before or alternative accommodation after. Nobody cared whether we lived or died. We had to go. It did not matter where, just go." "Did anyone explain why you had to leave?" The bomber tried to. Murambasivina's real aim, he said, was to prevent disease and curb crime. Was that its main aim? Comrade Melusi belched. Disease and crime increased instead. No, Murambasivina had nothing to do with curbing of disease and crime. Its true aim was to punish us, the urban poor, for supporting opposition parties. "Waiter, come." The visitor was ready to pay. A female waiter came. "We hope you've enjoyed our hospitality, sir," she said to the visitor, ignoring Comrade Melusi. She had presumed correctly that the visitor was her real debtor. "But if there was anything not to your liking, please note it down on the questionnaire our receptionist will ask you to fill out as you leave." Her English was perfect, a fact of which she seemed immensely proud. "And now, sir, here is your bill." A big stack of cash dwarfing the debt came out to settle the bill. "Keep change," offered the visitor in degraded English, as if to take this proud woman down a peg. His effort did not work. Her pride still intact, she made off with her prize and bowed. Comrade Melusi resumed. Murambasivina chewed me up, then spat me out," he said. "I imagine it did," said the visitor. "Listen, you've been through hell, Comrade Melusi. So here." He reached into a side pocket for another stack of American dollars this time, and handed it to him. "Thank you, Mr. Longway," Comrade Melusi said, accepting his gift gratefully. "Thank you very much." A document titled Path Alpha followed. "This document," explained the visitor, "covers the subject I said I had come to discuss with you. That is, mobilizing our discontent with Africa in its present state into will to change it. Comrade Melusi, would you be interested in joining that project? Money would not be a problem." Would he be interested? Well, of course, he would be interested.